Anyone watching the news or reading a newspaper today has certainly noticed the changes occurring in journalism. There was a time, not all that long ago, when people actually trusted reporters. Because years ago, reporters endeavored to be fair and impartial. Those were the qualities that endeared us to our hometown newspapers and encouraged us to share our family dinner hour with the likes of Walter Cronkite. Sadly, those qualities are now giving way to the less than admirable traits of a headline-chasing, exploitive, and sensational press.
He calls himself an equal opportunities incarcerator and says he'll lock up anyone who breaks the law. But in Arizona, it was Sheriff Joe Arpaio's focus on illegal immigrants that brought him international fame.
We were told that this story was about his illegal immigration fight. So to go back to some lawsuit that happened in 1995 and try to extrapolate from the sheriff's memory all the little idiosyncrasies of that particular case, many of which we had nothing to do with. This missing larynx, if it did go missing, is, as the sheriff said, we are not the medical examiner's office. We did not perform the autopsy. We never had custody of that type of thing. That was in the purview of the Maricopa County Medical Examiner's Office. It was a question more apt for them, not for us.
Did your office discard vital evidence, including the crushed larynx of the dead man?
That's not true, because that's something that the medical examiner has control. A restraint chair, one inmate died in 1996. So I did have a little memory over that case and tried to explain it. Also, he talked about a prostitution operation that we had, but he refused to indicate that the former county attorney dismissed all those cases just before my election to embarrass me.
Do you think an illegal immigrant is as serious a criminal as a rapist and a murderer?
Well, I don't know. I'm not going to compare the type of crimes.
Why don't you? What about a pedophile?
Very serious, and we put a lot of resources.
More serious than an illegal immigrant?
I would say yes. I think everybody will understand that. We have about 15 officers dedicated to enforce the illegal immigration laws. We have hotlines that help us. We have hotlines on drugs and deadbeat parents too.
I think to his credit, Bashir did a lot of research. But I think a lot of where he got his research was flawed. It would appear to me by his line of questioning that he relied a lot on the New Times articles and so forth that talked about different aspects of what has happened over the last 17 years. Some of that obviously is not true. I mean, with the New Times, for example, that type of newspaper, half of it's true, half of it's not true, and you really don't know where the truth stops and the lies begin. So it really makes it a very insidious publication, especially for research for a journalist. To rely on something like the New Times is, I think, a terribly flawed thing to do.
Do you remember the 2003 drive to drive prostitution out of Maricopa County? Do you remember that big campaign that you led? Didn't it backfire because some of your volunteers got naked on video and ended up having sex with the prostitutes?
That's another erroneous report. That's not true.
We submitted roughly 55 cases to the county attorney for charges. And it's interesting to note that employees of the county attorney's office back then under a different regime, helped us plan our operation. They knew everything that we were doing and they supported it completely. But the elected county attorney at that time decided to make a political statement and dismiss the charges in an attempt to embarrass Sheriff Joe.
The county attorney says that the reason it was impossible to press charges was because your volunteers were having sex with the people they were supposed to be arresting.
Well, that's not true. They were naked because I allowed them to take their clothes off to develop the cases. That's not unusual in this country.
So you allowed them to take their clothes off?
Yes.
Why did they end up having
they had no sex
interactions with some of
they had no sex.
So Martin Bashir very, very much misrepresented the entire operation. We did not engage in sex acts, and we did not authorize it as part of our tactics.
So then he says people killed in restraint chairs, and he makes the assertion, after already hearing quite clearly from the sheriff and others, that none of our people in the prostitution sting had sex with prostitutes. He still makes the assertion people are killed in restraint chairs and people having sex with prostitutes. He refuses to relinquish his imagination that our guys had sex with prostitutes. That's not journalism. It's not fair and impartial journalism. Maybe it's journalism today, but it's really yellow journalism. And I would have thought that Nightline would have been above that, but apparently they're not.